Well, let's see. I'm Christopher DeLaurneti. I'm a field recordist and phonographer. I've been making field recordings since the late 1980s, and that's actually when I started failing at making field recordings, and I don't think I was successful or made any interesting field recordings probably until much later in the late 90s. I'm primarily interested in recording urban city environments. I'm not a nature recordist, or I should say maybe I'm a failed nature recordist, although now I'm starting to actually make some recordings out in nature. And I do make electroacoustic music, and I'm also a performer and teacher. My prime concern, though, is going out into the world with a microphone. I think there are quite a few things to latch onto with what Irv Teibel did. First, I think, for me, significantly, is the range of environments that he recorded. I think also the fact that as an artist he went out and he released his own work and found a way to do it and made his art, which is pretty esoteric when you really think about it, but did use packaging and design to get it out there. So it is at once, I think, a work of art. It's also a commercial product. And in some senses, it graphically could be thought of as crass, although not in an injurious or malicious way, more in a like a, hey, this is really cool kind of way. Field recordings, as well as electronic music and recording, that these are all of a piece. There is no attempt to, I think, present things as a complete, coherent snapshot. There's always a sense that this is something artificial that if you bring into your life will actually seem very natural. I think the genius of the Environments LPs is to turn what could just have been documents into something else, and to invite the listener to listen not in just one way to a document, or to listen as a way to relax, but to offer multiple paths into what it could and might be. Quite often field recording is working in isolation. You go out into the woods and you are seeking sound that is free of a human presence and human cause. And there is ideally a version of nature that you seek. That's one angle. Another angle is that you're going out into the woods to document what's there and to document humanity's impact. So it can be a utopian exercise. It can also be a scientific and politically active exercise. For me, the Central Park Bean was one of these crucial pieces that said, yeah, you can, your forest isn't out over there 80 miles away. Your forest, the place that you should go record and listen, is right here. And that there are interesting things to listen to in the city, and there are revelatory things to hear. I think there are three really important frames in the Environments series, because Irv Teibel was not the first one to go out and record environments. People have been doing that since the dawn, right? Since the dawn of the wax cylinder. But I think the first important frame is actually is the LP, right? Is the graphic design, where it's not only elegant, but it also communicates a lifestyle here, right? And here. The two other frames that I see here are the LPs. Each side contrasts, right? And I think this is really interesting. It actually goes against the grain of what an album was or even should be. But here we have two halves, and each side of the LP is a frame in and of itself. Going back here, Smithsonian Folkways has released lots of, and Cook, for example. I have the Mexican Fiesta LP somewhere here. But none of them had the graphic beauty and attraction of the Environments LPs. They looked good, some of them looked terrible, but this was consistent as a product. Yet each one was incredibly different. So we have the frame of the album cover. We have actually two frames, one on each side of the LP. And I think a very important frame that I've only been thinking about recently, but I also believe, let's do this correct. Look at that, it's the original Atlantic. That's so amazing. But if we look at the time on this, 30 minutes on the dot. there is another frame that I think is really important. Number one, it's very predictable for the listener, so they know how long it's going to last. And if they play it at half speed instead of 33 RPM, right? Some record players, few of them now, but back then a lot of record players could accommodate 16 RPM. So, at half speed at 16, well, your figure is going to be a little longer, right, than an hour. And what that communicates is that this is an experience, not only what you hear, but the actual disc itself is the experience. It's not a document, right, of, say, the Mexican fiesta that has a variable, one side is 14 minutes, the other side, I don't know how long, right? But the experience is here, and it is timed. Irv's work is incredibly relevant today, mainly because most of us actually make field recordings. We don't know it, but when we point our camera and we're recording a cat or a tree or a frog or a friend or someone doing karaoke at a bar, we're making a field recording that happens to have visual accompaniment. And chances are one or the other is going to be of better quality than the other. So we have much more experience listening to the natural world. And what better way to learn about listening to the natural world than to go back to pioneers like Bernie Krause and Irv Teibel and Gordon Hempton and Dan Gibson and many, 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 many others who were doing it when it was a really difficult thing to do, when it was a real challenge and a risk.